Hey everyone, and welcome to 121 in Flux. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we talk about movies on this show. This episode is going to be about a film called The Man from London, which is notable because the reason why we're doing this movie is because on our Oscar predictions at the start of the month, we've each picked a movie that we would do if one of us won, and by one just getting the most right. And I won by 1 point.
Yeah,
So
yes, you did.
so
It was close, but you won.
it was close, and here we are. And I loved that the reason why I won it was the sound categories that pushed me over the top.
I stand by the Oscars. They got it wrong. They were shite. I don't know why they picked what they
No,
did.
no, 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 no. I won, therefore they got it right.
No. They gave it to the just the wrong choice.
uh-huh. So, what is The Man from London? We'll start spoiler free, of course, and we'll give you warning before we get into spoilers. But The Man from London is a Béla Tarr film. It's actually co-directed as well by Agnes Hranitzky. Hranitzky,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which I will say, dick move on the credits because it says director Béla Tarr and like a bunch of other things, and then additional like co-director, and I was like. So, well, you just say directors together at the top. That was kind of a dick move.
Well, I think it's because I don't think it's equal directors because it's very much a Béla Tarr movie, like through
No,
and
no,
through.
that's true. But I still feel like the other director should get a bit more credit than like quite far. It was relatively far down this list.
Agnes knew what he signed up for,
Eh, you'd hope.
or she. I'm not actually sure.
Uh,
See, I assume she if it wasn't a foreign name, but I'm not actually sure. And that
it's a
matters.
she.
Is it she? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Uh, all right, so Man from London. So Béla Tarr, who's Béla Tarr? Béla Tarr is a director, a Hungarian director, who has made a bunch of movies, two of which I have seen before: Werkmeister Harmonies and The Two and Horse. And I really like those movies, particularly Werkmeister Harmonies. That film is fantastic. It's very art house. All his movies are black and white. He's known for having very long shots, very long takes, very slow pace, very moody, very art house. So that's kind of the thing. And I'd been meaning to watch this for a long time. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've been meaning to watch this since the year it came out. But for whatever reason, I just never got around to it. And this was just an excuse to finally do that. And at some point, these older movies that I've not seen, like Damnation, which I also plan to get around to at some point. I think secretly I was holding out for a HD release at some point, and it's just not quite happened. And
No, and
we're at the point now where I feel like it's just the cause
yeah,
is
might as well
lost.
just watch it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
No, I'm
that's
with you.
it's a shame of the matter, but here we are. So notably though, this movie is not actually in Hungarian. It's actually set in France, and it's basically 50-50 English and French, depending on which character's
Yeah.
speaking. Uh, and bizarrely, Tilda Swinton's in there. I did not know that before I watched
Yeah,
it.
you just see a name at the start.
And I'm like, wow, Tilda, right, okay. So it's just cool as she was like, oh, I like that art house director. I'm going to go do a wee movie with him. And she's there. She's not even a big role, arguably. It's quite a relatively
Yeah,
minor
she's just
role.
kind of around here or there.
Yeah, she's the main character's wife, who's in a few scenes, but not a whole bunch. So the premise of The Man from London, which is based on, I believe, an old novel, is basically we have this railway worker who does the crossing. Where he changes the railway lines. He's working at a railway that's right next to the docks where the ships come in. So it's quite natural. Obviously, a lot of the ships will come in and then they'll get off and go on a train depending on where they're going. It makes a lot of sense. You'd imagine this was the channel because it's someone from London who's came
That's what I would assume.
on the boat.
I mean, there's a few places it could be, admittedly.
There's a few it could be, but that's the natural assumption I think to make first. And yeah, so basically he witnesses a murder while he's working because he's in this great little kind of
Tower.
tower, yeah. So he's up high and he's got windows all around him, and he witnesses this event, and he goes down and he retrieves the box that the person who was killed had on him, and it's full of money. and that kind of sets up the plot. And he's worried that the other person who killed the guy might be after him, and there's obviously other people who come to inspect said murder and theft of money that these guys were fighting about. And that's kind of the plot of the movie, and it is in traditional Béla Tarr fashion. I don't think there's a single line of dialogue outside of like sort of murmurs from characters in the distance, right? Because when he's watching through the window at the start, you do hear
hear a bit, yeah.
But yeah, but the main character doesn't open his mouth. You don't hear a single word from him. And I checked. I was curious when it first happened. I checked.
I'm gonna guess about half an hour, 35 minutes maybe.
It was 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes before our main character speaks, and that's kind of the pacing you expect with Béla Tarr. He loves to do lots of long shots, lots of long takes, very black and white. It's very beautiful. But before I go any further, I committed this knowing I liked his movies. I knew coming into this what his movie was going to be like, and it is very much through and through a Béla Tarr movie. So I asked the question with great curiosity, if I can speak properly tonight. Connor, did you enjoy The Man from London?
I like how it looks, but I don't know, kind of the plot wasn't doing much for me, and how it looks can only sustain me for so long.
Okay. Yeah. It's funny, I actually had no idea how you were going to land on this.
Neither did I, because
I
watched a man in Twin Peaks sweep a floor for about 4 minutes, no problem. And
yeah, but at least that came after about 15 hours of non-stop thrill ride stuff. It was like, okay, right, I'll give him this scene. Give him this weird.
The point is, I'm not opposed to watching slow, drawn-out scenes, but I don't know. I just felt like the plot didn't really do anything for me in the movie.
I think the plot works well enough. I think it's definitely stronger at the start as you're discovering what it's about. I think that was probably my favourite plot-wise. For me, Béla Tarr works, and because I watched Werkmeister Harmonies knowing nothing about it, other than I had some buzz from certain people, and I didn't know anything about it. I put it on this Hungarian black and white, 1:66 ratio movie, which this also is. This is 1.66. Not knowing what it was, and the opening of that is a guy teaching people about the rotation of the planets by making couples at this bar dance, like the rotation of the planets, and this music's playing. I assume it's the same composer who did, because it sounded very similar in terms of its style.
Right.
The music here, which I also like as well. I like the music.
I do like the music a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of like. He has this simplicity to it where he likes to have just 3 or 4 cues, and he'll just use those 3 or 4 cues.
Yeah, slight variations here or there.
Yeah, but they're very much, and they'll play for a while. They kind of accompany the music, the visuals, where it'll be nice, drawn out kind of pieces.
Yeah.
And another big theme of the movie is kind of time and almost the ticking. There's no actual clocks, but it almost feels like sometimes in the music, or sometimes it'll be like a sound effect. Like at one point, there's a kid bouncing a ball off a wall, but it's it's perfectly in time, and it's giving the scene a rhythm. For me, this is a pure art house exercise in how to visually make a movie interesting, even when what's happening is very simple.
Okay.
And for me, the visuals keep me kind of on the edge the entire time. I am so wrapped up in what's happening on the screen. The opening scene where you're watching this boat, and there's characters in the distance on the boat, like talking about something, and one gets off, and then they're throwing this box of money over to the other guy, across the water, and then the fight. And as we're going back and forth behind the window, we eventually reveal there's someone actually watching this. The camera comes back, and you actually see behind them, and then you see all the trains leaving, and it's very methodical. You see everything, and nothing impresses me more when I start to think about how much of a pain this was to get all right and get the timing of everything. Especially when you've got something like a train. The train has to move at the right time.
Yeah.
Just all these factors, and it's one thing when you do it in a room, but it's another when you've got this location where he's looking out at a boat, a train, and multiple people, there's water.
I will say the advantage to doing it in this way compared to just in a room with people is it's really easy to give everyone radios and just go, right, now, here's your cue,
absolutely.
you do this.
And to be fair, with very little dialogue, there's nothing to stop the director just shouting out directions as they go.
There's not, which actually brings me to one of my major criticisms.
I know where you're going with this.
There is some truly atrocious dubbing in this movie.
There is, for some reason, the lines are all dubbed. Some are better than others.
Yeah, but
like the
some
main,
of it is
because the main
awful.
character, whenever he spoke, I felt like it was fine.
Yeah.
But like Tilda Swinton was ropey. The English investigator, when he shows up, he is just like not even remotely close. It's bizarre.
Do you know, it was so bad that there is French dubbing that I can see is just that wrong. I'm barely even listening to the language because I don't speak it. I'm reading the subtitles,
Yeah.
and I'm going, "This is so bad." It really took me out of the moment quite a few times in the movie.
Do you know what's funny is like it took me out when the inspector dude showed up. I was like, okay, right, that is bizarre enough. To the credit though of the movie, I'd say like 70% of his lines are delivered when you see the back of his head and not the front.
I almost feel like they knew that this was going to happen. Like, you know, that okay,
Yeah.
he's not good at this. Let's use shots from the back.
Yeah, but it always worked in the style of what they were doing thematically, so I can't really fault it. Basically, it is a problem. It is something you can complain about. I think immediately I went, oh wait, they did this like 60s, 70s Italian style where they didn't care about the dubbing. They just didn't care about it. And it is glaring, it is annoying from a modern perspective, but I put up with it in like the good, the bad, the ugly. I can put up with it here.
That's fair. I think I can forgive it more in a film from the 60s than I can from 2000. What is it? 7, 6, 8 around there.
2007, yeah.
Yeah, I can forgive it a lot more from 50 years ago.
Which is
Here I'm like, there's no
worth
excuse.
It's worth mentioning as well. This doesn't feel like it's set present day 2007.
No, absolutely not.
It does not feel like that
There's
at all.
very little technology. It feels.
I think
Yes,
it's intentionally kind of timeless. Like I think it's intentionally meant to be murky.
if I had to place it based on some fashion and what's going, I'd say maybe 60s,
Yeah,
50s, 60s.
yeah. But at the same time, it's not even like there's like any haircuts that would make extreme 60s.
No, I'm just thinking some of the coats that they wear, like
Yeah.
nothing outlandish. Just here or there, I'm going, okay, that's the vibe I'm getting.
I think it's very intentionally like you don't know exactly when this is. This is
Yeah.
some place because they never even like name the town or anything like that. Even though you could maybe try and work it out based on where the boat is and like where like
Yeah.
okay, if this is coming from through the channel, then it's probably one of these places. But I think it's intentionally this is some place, some when.
Yeah.
It's meant to be kind of timeless in that sense. Because the story ultimately is about greed and sort of doing things you're not very proud of to try and solve your troubles, your money problems, and so on.
Which is a point. Something that might date it a bit more accurately is the money.
It's true, yeah. The money is actual money, so you can.
Yeah, it's mostly £20 notes. So you can kind of place it within a certain time frame for how long have those been in circulation?
That said, though, it was 2007, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the euro was already a thing in 2007, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So what's the problem?
Well, at one point, I think when he's buying something, it sounded like it was really expensive for euros. I assumed it was francs.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. Yeah, okay, you're right.
Because he charged, I won't say what it is for spoiler's sake. It's not a huge spoiler, but he charges him. He doesn't say the currency. He just says 460, and I went, oh, that must be francs because that sounds outlandish in euros.
Unless that's the point that this was a
maybe,
really
yeah.
outlandish purchase.
But he only handed him over a few notes.
That's true.
He literally hands him like 3 or 4, notes.
No, you're right.
So I mean, they could be hundreds, but I mean,
They could be.
it doesn't seem
but
like it.
No, you're right. It didn't feel like euros.
Because it's not like he was using the British money, because he couldn't be yet, because it's British money.
Yeah,
He has to get that exchanged somehow.
right. But I mean, there is a point in time where you have that British currency and, before euros, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. There's probably like a 20-year window or something like that.
So you can kind of start nailing it down if you really want to.
You can. But I think that's less...
This is more just, this is what we had on hand, because this is what the currency was.
I think this is a budget thing, because I was actually looking up earlier on. Apparently they had some issues and they got shut down after... Because this was really... really dark and like kind of a unfortunate thing for everyone involved. But one of the original producers killed himself like like, days before the film started shooting. And then the financing went to shit, and it went through a bank, and they had a lot of. They ended up starting shooting a year later than it was supposed to, because it was meant to be shooting like mid 2005, and ended up not shooting most of it until mid 2006. Yeah, so I think that actually might be the sound thing, and where that comes from is the budget. I think because they've got these locations that are, they're out in the open, they're the real places. I think they just made a call to. Since most of it is so dialogue light, because there is
just get away with it. Yeah.
There's
I get that.
There's so much of the movie where it is like I say, the opening 20-30 minutes, which is probably the strongest part of the movie. I love that.
Oh, absolutely. I think the opening is definitely the best, because that's the point where you were talking about how, okay, this is how the visuals make it interesting. You're talking about that. You're describing that opening scene. I'm fully into it at that point. It's only when it gets later in the movie that I'm like, okay, the plot's still not doing anything. It's fine, and then it's like, okay, now the intrigue and the mystery of the opening's gone.
Yeah, I was into the plot right to the start, and then
I was at the start, but as it went on, I got less interested.
No, I was still into it, because I kind of realised what it was doing with its themes, and I realised how it was comparing him to the guy who originally stole the money, and I was kind of comparing and contrasting. But like I say, I think the camera for me is so confident, and it always feels like. When I watch most movies, and I don't mean to say this in a way to like belittle like other cinematographers or other directors, like that's not what I mean to do here. But there's so many movies, especially TV. Maybe TV's a better example here, where so much of TV it feels like there's a way you're supposed to cover a scene, and they'll mostly do that, and then there'll be some artistic flourishes here or there to give it a bit of style, or maybe get the mood they want or whatever. But there's still the basic idea of, okay, we need a master shot, we need reverse shots of the two characters in a scene or whatever. There's rules that we have to. There's check boxes to check all the way down, and then you make it work in the edit. It feels like they get so much coverage of all these different shots just to make sure when they get in the edit room, they know they've got enough to make it work, because they're not necessarily confident that they actually can cobble together the scene. They're worried that maybe one thing might not work. And as someone who's actually made student films and stuff, I sympathise.
It's probably the way you should go for most of the time.
To an extent, there's a safety factor there.
Yeah.
But this feels so confident. This is like the camera feels like it's part of the choreography of the scene, and it's not even like the scenes itself have. Like I often talk about action scenes, how like an action scene is the most effective when the camera feels like it's part of the choreography in the scene. Here, the camera's part of the choreography for every single scene. Even if it's just characters sitting around talking, it feels like it's part of the... Because it's just... Like, an entire scene will be one shot. There's very little cut... Most of the cuts in this movie are between scenes. There's very little in-scene cutting.
It's true. There is a clear level of quality in the camera work, especially, as well as the direction overall. Don't get me wrong. But ultimately, it's just not enough alone to hold my interest. I need something as well as that to back it up. Maybe if the sound hadn't been taking me out of moments, it would have been easier, because these uninterrupted shots are being interrupted by this glaring problem to my mind, at least. Like, where I'm seeing this and it's taking me out of the moment, so it almost feels like there's a cut even when there's not.
Yeah, well, I completely am the opposite. For me, the visuals and the story are completely enough. Because it's not a super complex story. There's not a super complicated amount of things that happen as the movie goes on. It's very simple when you actually boil it down to what's taking place. And all of his movies are kind of like that. At least the ones I've seen.
I think it's just not a particularly interesting story to me, though. Is the problem with that? Like the story's not backing up the visuals for me.
I can't really counter that with anything.
No, you can't. That's a personal thing. Like I'm like, it's just not working for me.
No, that's just. I think the story's fine. Story's good even. But I think he intentionally works better with a simple story, because it's all about handling each scene with the care and time to make it feel like it's real to some extent. That's the beauty of doing the one shot that lasts so long and having everything just be part of the scene. One of my favourite things that he does, he often will end a scene with a character contemplating something. Usually a side character. Usually a character who was just kind of there for the rest of the conversation. At one point the guy in the bar who, what's in the bar hotel, it'll linger on him for the 10 seconds at the end of the scene.
It's funny. I actually think it does that a little too often, that it stops feeling real. because it's everyone's doing it all
Oh,
the
no,
time,
sure,
and I'm
sure,
like,
sure.
okay, but it breaks the immersion.
Let me clarify this. When I say real, I don't mean real as in realistic.
Yeah,
I mean a completely different thing. When I say real, I mean this is a world that is existing, but not our world. There is nothing realistic about the way these characters pause or
yeah,
do things. But the funny thing is this is exactly the sort of thing when I was doing student films where I kept telling actors to, no, you're doing things too quick. Slow the goddamn down. I want suspense, or I want, and it was nothing compared to this. Like this was a more normal amount of suspense and stuff I was trying to go for. But I love drawing this shit out. I love it with a passion. The like Béla Tarr's a director I discovered who like plays to my weirder sensibilities in a way that I didn't know could be played to.
Okay, here's what I think it is. To counter what you've just said, you say, oh, it builds the suspense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think after a point, I'm bored of the suspense. There comes a time where I need the payoff eventually. It's quite a while, admittedly, that I can wait. Like that opening 30 minutes, by far the best part of the film. Like, and there's very little payoff. There's so much suspense still in there. But eventually, I'm like, okay, it's all just suspense. It's like 95% suspense. I'm like, okay, it's just a bit too much for me.
I disagree.
No, it's first taste.
In the words of Tommy Wiseau, I disagree.
Yeah. Like this is not something I'm saying is objectively wrong with it. Like I can't say this is bad because it's clearly not. I'm not saying that.
This is the thing. This is the thing about the Béla Tarr is that even amongst film people, if you want to use that phrase or whatever you want to call it, the film community or film fans or whatever, he's very 50-50. Like half the people think he's a goddamn genius and think his movies are visual poetry, and I'm kind of in that camp. I think visual poetry is actually the best way to put this. They're tone visual poems, I guess, is how I'd phrase it.
It might be. The problem with that is I don't really like poetry.
Oh no, I hate it. Well, I hate it. That's a bit harsh, but
that was really strong.
But I don't like poetry either.
No, I know.
But film is a different medium. I'm using poetry to kind of.
I know.
Right,
I just wanted to make a joke.
Because David Lynch, I think, is a lot of this in a lot of the same way. I feel like he like a lot of the stuff that people don't like about him, his abstract stuff. To me, that is visual poetry, and I don't think it works in every medium. I don't necessarily like that in poetry. I don't even necessarily like it in prose or comic books because I feel like it gets a bit more murky in those typically. But I think there's something with film, with visuals and audio, where you can kind of link these weird things together to make this cohesive whole, that even though it's really weird and different. And Béla Tarr's movies aren't actually that weird. They're just kind of off-center a little bit. Like you say, like characters like pause for a little bit too long, where it feels like they're of this world. It's a little bit different, but they all act appropriately to belong in that world.
They're all consistent, yeah.
And that's what I like about it. And some people hate that. Some people hate when characters all feel like they're all like, I always go back to the Joss Whedon thing where some people think all these characters sound witty and too witty the same way, and that takes them out of it. All examples like that. And to me, that doesn't bother me at all. To me, that's the style of what's going on here. Not everything has to fit what the archetype of normal is.
That's fair. It's a criticism I have had of, not all the time. Like the Joss Whedon, I obviously don't agree with. But I can think of a couple of examples in comics, like Bendis, or occasionally King, where I'll feel like, okay, there's not enough variety in the character voices, and it's that kind of translates to here sometimes where I'm like, yeah, okay, they're all a bit too similar.
Well, you're reading the voices. You just put a different voice on, you'll be fine. Do an accent for one. Anyway, the point I was getting at before is that I said half think he's, it's visual poetry, and then the other half think he's a goddamn hack, and there's like nothing of merit in any of his work.
Okay, I definitely don't think that. I want to make that clear.
So you're the weird guy in the middle who...
like, there is clearly talent, like, undeniably, like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing, and what he's put out here is clearly exactly what he wanted to
oh yeah, this is unapologetic, which is why I love it. I love it anyway. But even if I didn't like the finished product, I would applaud it because this is unapologetically his work of art. Whatever you want
No,
to phrase it that way.
no,
Like,
and I agree with that.
this is no one interfered. No studio told him what to do. No one made him compromise. He just made his goddamn movie, and it is his thing. It's again, to compare it back again to David Lynch. We appreciate when no, this is just David Lynch movie. Like, it might not work. It might be weird. It might not be for everyone. It might not be publicly or mainstream or financially like successful in any way, shape, or form. But it's his goddamn story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
It's like I say, I can respect the hell out of that. Like, this is unequivocally, this is art. Don't be wrong, but art doesn't work for everyone, unfortunately.
no, it doesn't.
And I mean, to go to David Lynch, there was a certain point of Twin Peaks where I just fundamentally disagreed with one of the implications. I would never say to change it or disagree. I disagree with it. I don't like it, but that's the vision, that's the story, that's the art. Fine. And I feel similar here. It's like, hey, don't change this. Don't change it on my account. It doesn't have to work for me. It's clearly working for a lot of people, you included.
Not that many. It's not like most people have heard of Béla Tarr.
All right, okay, fine, but
a very strong minority of people
yeah, all right,
love
fine.
this.
Yes, but I don't love it. It doesn't speak to me in the same way that it does to you, unfortunately.
Now, what do you think the reaction would have been if I had somehow got Matt to watch this?
Oh, Matt would have tried to rip your head off. That's just a start off.
Oh, jeez.
I can't imagine Matt ever trying to sit through this movie. I really can't.
Oh, God, I love it so much. There's something so powerful to me about just shutting the goddamn hell up and just pure visual storytelling. That opening was the cameras going back and forth and you realise someone's watching and you see the different parts and then you see him go outside and get the money and come back and you see it's money. Like, the whole thing, a lot of it one shot.
Yeah. All that is pretty like my standout point of the movie, which is kind of a shame because it's kind of like, okay, it's a little downhill from there almost.
So good, and I'll give a spoiler warning. If anyone cares about spoilers for Man from London, here's your point of no return. So obviously there's the person who murdered the other guy. Like, sort of like, one of my other favorite little moments of this movie is we follow our main character, Maloine, or however you pronounce it, foreign names. I can't do it. But he sees his daughter who works at this small butcher store shop thingamajig, and she's sweeping in the back. She's mopping in the back. I remember because she was kicking out a hell of a lot of water out the door. She kept like
You're right, yeah.
swiping it out, and it was just like puddle. I was like, I hope someone walks past as you're doing that, just so you splash them, head to toe in water. But he stops and like chats to her for a little bit, and it sets up some of the themes where he's not really comfortable with her working there. He thinks she's better than that. So again, the theme of money problems being a thing. That's why he's tempted to keep the money and not report the murder and blah 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 blah. But he walks down the street and there's this kid, kicking the football off the wall. And again, it's this beat to the scene, and then the camera comes back, and the murderer then walks, but the whole thing takes place over several minutes.
Yeah.
And then he finally walks past as well, and I'm like, oh, that was a good little reveal. It was just, and it's not surprising necessarily. That you already have the suspicion that he knows that he might be have the money or know something or at least witness the crime.
Yeah.
Like, you already have that in your head, but it's just a simple thing of like, no, we're going to play this in real time, and we're going to see the moment where he's in pursuit. We're going to see that.
It's true, and I think those are the moments that sometimes lose me, where I get bored of the suspense. It goes on just too long that the suspense goes away, and I'm just waiting for it now. I'm not waiting. I'm not anticipating it anymore. Like I am for a while, and then after a while, I'm like, I can only hold anticipation in my body for so long until it just kind of has to go somewhere.
I guess it's just different tolerances for that. I really I don't know how to describe how much I love how much he makes you wait for the thing to happen, but nice. I do. There's something about just the camera sitting there down that alleyway, and just the pace of the ball hitting the wall. It just works. It's like a really slow piece of music where it's making you wait for that note to come in, and you know it's coming, and you got that the long chord from beforehand still ringing out. It just keeps going, It just keeps going, and then you're waiting for it, and then eventually it comes in, and it's like this release. And I get that for a lot of people this is just too long and drawn out, but
Like I said, it's clearly not bad. It just it loses me because I'm like the payoff of okay, there he is. He's walked past. I don't get that moment because I've already gone okay, and then when he walks past, I'm like, all right, there he is.
I'd love if everyone who watches this or listens to this goes and checks the movie out and comes back, and I'd wonder like how many people would like it, how many people would hate it, and so on. My fear is that almost everyone would hate it, and I'd get a lot of angry messages.
Yeah,
for
maybe.
sending them all off in that
It
direction.
depends on the type of film fan who goes to watch it, doesn't it?
I think it does, and I feel like there's no predicting if you're going to like it or not, because I don't think even you, if I mean, I described this well enough, like his style well enough before you went and watched this.
Yeah.
And I don't think you could really predict. Okay, I like slow movies. Yeah, slow movies are great.
I stand like this could have gone either way for me. Like it really could have, and like I said, I still appreciate it. I still think it's a very good, well put together movie. It just loses the impact for me.
But hey, so I want to talk about some of the other plot stuff that happens. Obviously, a big thing in the movie is that he wants to get his daughter out of the awful work, and he just does it without thinking about it, and then he takes her and buys her this for which the previously mentioned 400 plus.
Which is
euros
why
or francs.
which is why I was thinking this might be euros because like it's the decadence of it.
Oh sure. No, that makes sense. It was just when he paid for it, it was like a couple of
Yeah. But like I said, maybe he's just got €100 notes.
Maybe he does, but I think the whole point is they're kind of poor, and that's why this is an extreme thing.
An extreme purchase. Yeah.
Because he takes the money out of like a little box they've got in their bedroom. That's where he gets it. And the wife Tilda Swinton's like screaming at him like, "Oh, you didn't think about this. You didn't think about the consequences." And like, no, this makes sense for the character because he didn't think about the consequences earlier either. He went out and got the money. He was tempted, and he didn't think about it. He just did it and didn't consider the consequences. And that's kind of the big theme of the movie is like these consequences and greed. Because we find out the guy who stole the money and then murdered his friend to like keep the money. He was having money troubles. Him and his wife were struggling to pay bills, and he did this. And the guy he stole from, who was like closing his theatre, is like, "No, if you just give the money back, there'll be no questions asked. I'll even give you like the last couple of nights of box office, but you have to give me the rest of the money back because I'm retiring. I'm doing my thing." And there's a real cold nature to it where it's almost like the rest of the world. Like even though our main character realizes like the lines that he's crossed, because eventually. We hear from his daughter, there's a man in our cabin, and he goes down to check, and he takes down some food with the intention of just giving him some food, seemingly. And we just stay outside the cabin, and this is one of these things I love. I'm like, oh, what's going on inside the cabin? What's going on in there? And you feel like you probably know there's probably a confrontation, but you don't really know for sure. And then he comes out and he's out of breath, and I'm like, oh no. But that's the thing. He immediately just goes to the inspector and says, "Hey, arrest me. I killed your man, about an hour ago." Here's your money. And this is the thing. So they go down, and I love the long shot of them walking down to the cabin with the inspector. It's all over the shoulder, just going down. Again, it's
a lot closer than most of the movie's been.
It is, yeah. And it feels very... Again, just the fact that we're out by the seaside and we're just kind of like doing this over the shoulder shot this entire time, there is this real sense to it because you are just going for this walk with them. There's no trickery, there's no nothing, it's just that. And I love that shot, but afterwards he's like, hey, this is basically a self-defense, he attacked you, essentially. So, here's some money. And he doesn't want to take it, as does the wife, because the wife of the murderer is like shown up as well, and she's just like heartbroken, she doesn't want to take the money either. Neither of them do. Neither of them, like, both of them have had like an emotional turnabout because of this. He's kind of learned the cost of like giving up his morals and giving up everything for money, so he doesn't want to take it. This is not about gain. But this inspector feels so cold. He's just like, no, you've earned this. Like, self-defense. Like he's willing to just wipe it all away because essentially he's there to make sure someone else gets their money back.
Yeah,
it's the cold hard nature of greed, I guess, and
yeah, definitely.
It's got those vibes, and so I think his films all tend to be really simple in the sense that they don't have a deep plot, but you can usually look at them and analyze, okay, what's it actually telling us? What's it doing here? And I think for me, all the long drawn out takes and the long drawn out scenes, It's all about feeling what the character's feeling in that moment. It's all about
No,
being
that's
with
fair.
him in that scene. And for me, when he is just sitting there contemplating something, I can usually get it. I can usually get what he's thinking. That reminds me of another shot I loved. When he does get home after his first shift, and he looks out the window, and the guys followed him, and he's just standing under the streetlight. It's all darkness. Again, it's black and white. Everything's gorgeous, very pretty. So no.
I get that shot. Really remind me of The Exorcist.
I can see that. I can see that a little bit. But no. But needless to say, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I wish I liked it more than I did because I can see the talent. I don't know. I'm actually quite disappointed.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely not angry though. I want to make that clear. I'm not angry that I watched this.
That's good. So on a scale of better or worse than The Last Jedi,
I think you already know my answer to that.
yeah, okay, out of 10 then.
Out of 10. This is actually quite hard because objectively I can see the benefits, but then it kind of doesn't work for me a lot of it. So it's quite difficult because on pure talent it's at least an 8, but then it's not really working for me. It's just kind of more in like the 6 range. So I'll even it out and give it a 7.
Split a difference.
Yeah.
On the former scale, way better than Last Jedi. On the traditional 10 scale, I'm probably shooting with a straight 9. I think it is very much the style as the substance, but I think this is such good filmmaking and such good camera work and imagery that is what the movie is. That can be good enough that it works for me. If anything, I think it almost works because it's so simple. Like I feel like if you did this, but the story was super complex and it was hard to follow because of it, it would actually detract from it. I think it actually works because no, keep the story simple and let the complexities come from the camera, and I think that's where it shines for me. So straight 9.
That's fair. I would like to just point out the irony that you won this on the sound category, and that is by far the weakest element of this movie. Undisputed, right?
Oh yeah, for the dialogue. I wouldn't count I don't include the music though, just to make that clear.
No. Just the sheer sound quality of the recording, of that.
The dialogue, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't want to include the sound effects because I do actually think the sound effects add a lot to the long shots where you have like the beats in the background and you have.
Oh, that's fair. Even some of them, I thought the actual. The sound itself was good, but the actual I'm trying to not be too technical with it all, but the way it sits in the scene isn't always there for me.
Okay, that's fair. But no, and for the record, out of the ones I've seen, I would rank this in the middle. I'd put Wreckmaster Harmony's down number 1. I'd put this at number 2. And then I'd put Turin Horse at number 3.
Fair enough.
Just in case anyone was curious. Turin Horse being about an 8.
Still pretty good.
Oh yeah, obviously I still liked it a lot. And then Wertmeister Harmonies was a 10. So we we can wrap up there. And the reason why I'm just telling you that is because I've got a funny feeling we're never going to do Wertmeister Harmonies.
You know, the weird part is I'm not even like opposed to watching his movies, but I don't know how much I'll have to add in terms of conversation.
No, that's fair.
Because if they're all, like I said, they're all this style. Like, I appreciate it, but I don't know how much I don't connect to it, so I don't know how much I have left to say on him.
If folk would like me to pick Wertmeister Harmonies as an overload vote pick 1 month,
oh, that's cruel,
to go against Matt, let me know. I'll consider it.
But be warned, Peter may not survive the encounter. So pick it. Make him do it.
Oh dear. So that was our this week's edition in the Art House Snobbery film review section of the site. But no,
we're a very balanced review show, aren't we?
We are pretty balanced. We cover everything from the schlock that is Pacific Rim to the art house Hungarian black and white genre.
Yeah, exactly. We're all over the place.
Everything in between. I think what I like about that though is it shows that our tastes are very very versatile, and I think even between us, like you didn't like this, but there's some stuff that you like that I can't stand.
Oh, absolutely.
So there's a lot of middle ground, of course, where we both like things, but there are some stuff that is purely down to taste. But hey, so that is The Man from London. So if you have seen it, and I hope some of you have, I hope we get a
I'd be
it.
intrigued if anyone here has seen it.
I'm interested if new people like show up because they'll say, "Oh, is that a review from Man from London? I want to watch this."
What I will say is though, if you listen to all this and got to the spoilers and you've heard me be a bit more negative, I'd still say go away and watch it. I'd be intrigued for people to see this, go away and watch it, and make their own opinion.
See, now you can all blame Connor if you hate it because he's the one saying go watch it.
You might very well hate it. Probably a lot of you will, depending on your tastes. But I think you never know. It's worth checking out.
If you love a good long shot, you will love the work of Béla Tarr. that's my recommendation. So that is it. So like, subscribe, all these stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv, and you can get a link to that in the description. And do not worry, this will be the last of the art house Hungarian fare for a good while, I imagine. They're all regretting I won the Oscar thing now. They're like, damn it, we could have had. What was
I going to make you watch?
Tusk? Oh, Tusk. It was Tusk, yeah. Oh, I'm glad I won. Yeah, no.
You haven't even seen Tusk.
This was for the better.
Next time. Every time we have a contest, and this is the prize, Tusk is going in there till I win one.
But I'm gonna have to get really inventive as to what I want to put in. But hey, so that is in Flux. So by all means, thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys, and we'll see you next time.